Hey, learning nerds. Before we begin today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Idle Courses Academy. If you're looking to transition over into the corporate instructional design space, you need the right guidance to do so. And Dr. Sargent and her team have done an incredible job of focusing on what's important to be a corporate instructional designer, like storyboarding, ID models and theories, authoring tools, project management tactics, and more. They even cover how to make your resume and portfolio stand out from the crowd and have an impressive completion rate with their students working at organizations like Google, Salesforce, GM, Uber, Walmart, and Amazon. Also, you won't be going through the learning experience alone. You'll be studying alongside other aspiring instructional designers, as well as working with experienced coaches. And as an added bonus, you'll get a copy of my book at a discount, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So check out the industry-recognized program that's showing up in job descriptions as preferred training and education by going to idlecourses.com/academy. Enrollment is opening back up again in March. That's already not that far away, which is insane to be able to think about. So enrollment is basically opening up again soon. Be sure to use my promo code Luke to save you $88 off your enrollment. And now, let's start the show. Hello, my nerdy people, and welcome on in to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I am a senior instructional designer. I'm an instructor, author, blogger, podcaster. I do a lot of things right now pertaining to instructional design because it is my passion. I absolutely love this field. I love what it is that I do, and being able to share these experiences with all of you and to have more of a conversation about instructional design has been absolutely awesome and certainly keeps this podcast going. And of course, if you want to know more about myself or the show, you can head on over to drlukehobson.com. Now, you may have already seen me talk about this on LinkedIn or Facebook or maybe via email, but just wanted to once again remind you that enrollment for the new cohort about collaborating and building relationships with subject matter experts is now open. This is going to be starting on February 13th, a 3-week learning nerd adventure with talking about how to really collaborate with our SMEs, how to get buy-in, how to influence others pertaining to our stakeholders with everything that you have for your designs. How do you really keep the project moving and on track? If there's one thing I could do as far as going back in time and telling myself about a thing I wish I knew before becoming an instructional designer, it would be how to work with other people. Because, of course, we always think about the learning experiences. We think about how students learn. But then there's this whole interaction with others, and sometimes they don't agree with you. And oftentimes, we need to take a step back and approach it from a different angle, get a new perspective, and then that's when things really do start to click. So inside of this course that's offered by EduFlow Academy, I will share with you everything I know, every tip, every strategy, every different type of blunder that I've made before in the past. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and then use these in working with your SMEs, whether they are faculty members or whether they are just your clients or for anything else. It really, everyone does apply. Doesn't matter the sector. We all need to work with other different types of people. So be sure, sign up today. That's going to be down below into the description for this podcast. Can't wait to see you there, and I can't wait to work with you. So let's talk about today's topic, ChatGPT. It's impossible to log into LinkedIn and not be bombarded by every other post talking about ChatGPT. And even though it's extremely repetitive and slightly cringeworthy at times, I get why all of us are talking about it. The first time I heard about ChatGPT, I didn't believe what it could do. But after speaking with a friend, he convinced me, I caved in, and I went down this rabbit hole with ChatGPT. And then that's when my mind exploded, and I've been trying to pick up the pieces ever since. So first thing is first, because you might be saying, Luke, what in the heck is ChatGPT? Well, it's the AI service that's going to replace us all and will create a new world order. Nah, just kidding. Really, this is something that's going to be... It's new. It's something that we should be paying attention to. And all jokes aside, let's actually ask ChatGPT and see how it defines itself. This is what it told me. It said, GPT Generative Pre-trained Transformer, didn't know that actually what that stood for until I asked it this, is a state-of-the-art language generation model developed by OpenAI. It is a pre-trained on a massive amount of text data and can generate human-like text in response to a given prompt or question. This can be used in various natural language processing tasks such as text summarization, translation, question answering, and conversation. GPT-3 specifically is the latest version of ChatGPT. It was trained on a dataset of over 570 gigabytes of text data and is able to produce highly coherent and contextually appropriate text, making it a powerful tool for natural language generation tasks. So with all that being said, let me put this in a more human way. Do you remember Smarter Child? It was a chatbot on AOL Instant Messenger that all of us loved to mess with. It was the first time you could have a chat with AI and have an actual conversation. You can ask it questions about movie times, the weather, and other slightly useful things. Now, of course, none of us actually did this, and we tried to break the model by using nonsensical terminology from back in the 90s by basically saying, "What's up?" and things of that nature, because, that's what we did back in the 90s. So now let's fast forward to 2023, and people are thinking that ChatGPT is going to replace us all. Our reactions as a society remind me of when Google first became a thing, or when we all switched to smartphones. There was a mass hysteria about not knowing how to use this new technology. Therefore, let's shun it out of our lives and pretend like it doesn't exist. I remember when my friends first got smartphones, and they actually said, I do remember this, is that now that they wield the power of Google in their pockets, why do I need to learn anything? And yeah, so that really didn't come true. You, of course, still need to learn things. You still need to be able to function as a human being. But instead, we were focusing on different types of ways to be able to use smartphones in our daily lives. And now most of us actually can't think of a world without them. We have become dependent upon them. This is my prediction with ChatGPT. We learn to live with Google, smartphones, and other advanced technology. So we will learn about how to incorporate this AI model into our daily lives. Maybe too much at first, but overall, I think we're going to find the right balance over time. I have been dabbling with ChatGPT on almost a daily basis with experimenting on a number of different items. Since my world is instructional design, you can take a guess that I've been thinking about ChatGPT and designing learning experiences. So let me share with you 5 things that I think it can help us right now. Please note how I said help, and I did not say that it is going to replace. My perspective on ChatGPT is that it's like a Kickstarter. When your brain doesn't have anything left in the tank and you're trying to be able to get creative and you're suffering from writer's block, or it's just been such a long period of time and you're just like, it's the end of the night, I can't really think about anything right now. Well, ChatGPT can actually help with that. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to do the work for you because it's not a perfect model. There are plenty of times when I see the results and they're good, but they're not good enough. So, with all of that said, let's talk about 5 ways to use ChatGPT as an instructional designer. Number 1, resumes. Whenever an aspiring instructional designer asks to see what my resume looks like, I'm reminded about how much I hate resumes. They are a necessary chore that you push off until you realize you need to dust the old thing off again to go find a new job. Initially, I asked ChatGPT to write me a resume for an instructional designer, and it was okay, but it heavily focused on the e-learning side of the house. Since my background focuses more on learning experiences, learning sciences, and working with SMEs, I asked for a revised version of the resume, and here is what the dialogue actually sounded like. So I said, write for me an instructional design resume where the focus is on designing learning experiences with using learning sciences. Also, include collaborating with subject matter experts. This is what ChatGPT gave me for a summary to put on the top of the resume. Instructional designer with a focus on using the learning sciences to design effective and engaging learning experiences. Skilled in collaborating with subject matter experts to create instructional materials that align with business and learning objectives. Strong background in adult education. Experience in utilizing various instructional design models and proficiency in e-learning software. Now, is that perfect? No. Is it a pretty good start? Yeah, I'd say so. Then, if you scroll down a bit, and by the way, you can find this entire thing at drlukehobson.com to be able to see exactly what I am saying. I'm not going to read for you word for word every single thing, or else we're going to be here all day. But then when I went into the responsibility section of a resume for an instructional designer, this is what it said. Collaborate with SMEs and cross-functional teams to design and develop instructional materials that align with business and learning objectives. Utilize the latest research in the learning sciences to design effective and engaging learning experiences. Proficient in e-learning software such as Storyline and Adobe Captivate to create interactive and multimedia-rich courses. Conduct needs assessments, evaluate course effectiveness, and makes recommendations for improvements using learning analytics. Stay current on industry trends and best practices in instructional design and learning sciences. And then it gave me many more. It essentially assumed that I've been an instructional designer for years, so it just gave me bullet point after bullet point about talking about a variety of instructional designers' responsibilities. But then it went into the skills section, which once again, it really hammered home being strong and understanding about learning sciences, instructional design models. It mentioned a number of different types of software. It talked about learning principles, needs assessments, and it even threw in ADDIE, SAM, and Agile. And of course, it talked about giving me certificates and then talked about professional development opportunities. And at the bottom, it made sure to actually say, please note, this is a sample resume and should be adjusted accordingly to your experience and to your qualifications. So, was that perfect? No, it was not perfect. Was it a good head start, though, for someone perhaps thinking about trying to tackle an instructional design resume for the first time and then spruce it up with their current resume? Absolutely. It's a great Kickstarter to be able to get you going on the right track. The next thing I tried, or I should say, number 2, were cover letters. Just as painful as resume writing comes creating cover letters. And while they're difficult to do, as a hiring manager, I enjoy reading them since I love to learn more about the applicants before chatting with them. So to ChatGPT, I went and I asked for it to write me a cover letter for an instructional design position. And I just literally said, write for me a cover letter for an instructional design position, word for word. It then gave me a cover letter of doing a bunch of bullet points about making sure to address the name, address, city, email, blah, 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 and all that good stuff. But then this is a little bit of a snapshot, and I'm not going to read all of this, but it's a little bit of a snapshot about what this said. And it goes, I am writing to express my interest in the instructional design position at XYZ company. With a PhD in learning sciences, a Master of Education in adult education, and several years of experience in the field, I am confident that I would be a valuable asset to your team. As an instructional designer, I have a passion for using the latest research in the learning sciences to create effective and engaging learning experiences. I have experience collaborating with subject matter experts to design and develop instructional materials that align with business and learning objectives. At my current position at XYZ company, I have been responsible for conducting needs assessments, evaluating course effectiveness, and making recommendations for improvements using learning analytics. My experience and skills in this area will make a positive contribution to your organization. Therefore, I am excited about the opportunity to join the team and to contribute my experience, my expertise in instructional design and the learning sciences, and of course, to be able to contribute to your fellow learners. I look forward to discussing my qualifications during an interview. Thank you for considering my application. Sincerely, your name. Well, I lied. I've just basically read you the whole thing. But the point is, folks, is that that's not bad. That is really not that bad at all. Cover letters are extremely important, but as most of you know, trying to be able to submit cover letter after cover letter is really tiring. And I know that some people have found different types of solutions where they essentially use a template and do a type of a plug and play as far as for changing the names of the hiring manager, changing the names of the organization. But even after a while, that gets tiring, and trying to be able to customize everything every single time you apply is quite taxing. So if you wanted to be able to go and use ChatGPT as your Kickstarter for this process, modify your cover letter, and then send it on over, I don't think that's a bad place to start, especially for those of you, once again, who have never written a cover letter before for an instructional design position, or it's been years since you had to actually write a cover letter and you're not so confident in your abilities to do so. Not a bad place to start. The third way are case studies. Now let's get into the more instructional design related tasks, shall we? The other ones we were talking more about how to get an instructional design job and take your first steps. But now we're getting into the real heart of the matter of instructional design. If you're like me, you love designing scenario-based learning assessments. I absolutely love SBL. I think it is wonderful, but boy, oh boy, they take a lot of mental effort to create, especially good ones. I think that's really like the thing. Anyone can make a type of a scenario that's just kind of blah and say that you work at ABC company and now you've had a problem. Like, no, no, no. We're not talking about those scenarios. We're talking about well thought out, detailed type of scenarios that really make learners go and read something and be able to envision themselves inside the shoes of that scenario and then trying to be able to figure out how to solve the problem, how to complete the task, or whatever different type of scenario you have created. I found that when I asked ChatGPT to create a scenario-based learning problem, it was okay. And kind of interesting, I found that when I changed scenario-based learning problem to then saying, write me a case study, which those aren't the same, but it produced the better results I was looking for. So a case study, by the way, in case you don't know, a case study is actually talking a real-world problem. It is a documented type of evidence that is really going forth and describing about a real world issue, what an organization went through, what an individual went through, what the outcomes really were. So it's all based around the real world, where scenario, it's more hypothetical. They can cross those lines, don't get me wrong. And that's kind of what I saw with this. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's roll with it. And let's see what happens. So therefore, I asked ChatGPT to write for me a case study on an organization realizing that it needs leadership training to help their middle managers. Now here is what it said, and I'm going to read this in its entirety because it's interesting. It's interesting. So it said, sure, here's a fictional case study about a company called BetterWorks that realized it needed leadership training for its middle managers. BetterWorks is a rapidly growing software company that specializes in project management tools. The company has experienced significant growth in the past few years, and as a result, its management team has expanded to include several middle manager positions. However, as the company continues to grow, the management team has begun to notice a lack of consistency in the performance and decision-making of its middle managers. To address this issue, the management team conducted a company-wide survey to gather feedback from employees about their managers. The survey results revealed that the middle managers lacked the necessary skills and struggled to effectively manage their teams. Many employees report feeling disempowered and disengaged, leading to a high turnover rate in those teams. Recognizing the urgent need to address the issue, the management team at BetterWorks decided to invest in leadership training for its middle management. The company worked with a consulting firm that specialized in leadership development to design a customized training program. The training program included both classroom instruction and on-the-job coaching with a focus on developing key leadership skills such as communication, problem solving, and team management. The middle managers also learned about the latest management trends and best practices, as well as the company's vision and values. In the months following the training, the company saw a marked improvement in the performance and decision-making of its middle managers. Employee engagement and satisfaction improved, leading to a reduction in turnover rate. Additionally, teams under these managers are performing better now with clear direction and well-defined goals. The middle management team at BetterWorks realized that investing in leadership training for its middle managers was crucial for the company's continued growth and success. But leadership training provided its middle managers the necessary tools to effectively lead their teams, which in turn improved the overall performance of the organization. Now, first thing is first, folks. That scenario was a bit long, but case studies are typically a bit lengthy, so that wasn't so surprising. If I wanted to, since this is a chatbot, by the way, I can ask it to make a shorter or change some of the wording for things. This is always a two-way street. If you don't like something, you can then request for it to change the wording or to change something up or to revise something. You would also need to customize this for your target audience to make sure that the settings, the environment, and the factors match the context to what you are designing around. So in this case, talking about leadership training, talking about middle management, but you can also get far more specific as far as you're talking about the region or talking about the sector or something else along those lines. Overall, I think it does need work, but once again, this was AI that created this. Not bad. Not bad at all. If somebody submitted this to me, I'd say, okay, cool, we can work with this. So it's really interesting. Once again, it needs work. That's kind of the theme of this entire episode. Everything seems to need work, but it's a great idea booster if you were struggling to come up with a scenario and you need something to be able to spark that creativity. The fourth way, learning objectives. Creating concise, clear, and transparent learning objectives are core to an instructional designer. Learning objectives are one of the foundations of instructional design, after all. So I was curious, could ChatGPT give me a head start with providing learning objectives? This task was something I really wanted to see, given that it's pretty time consuming to come up with learning objectives when working with SMEs or when working with yourself, by the way. This is usually a type of an entire meeting when working with a SME to be able to figure out some things, going back to the drawing board, doing some editing. This usually is a time consuming process to come up with really, really great learning objectives. So I figured, why not give it a ChatGPT? Let's give it a try. So this is what I said. Write for me 5 learning objectives for a new leadership program that focuses on strategy, technology, finances, and culture. These are the learning objectives that they gave me. Develop an understanding of the key components of strategic leadership and learn how to create and execute effective strategic plans that align with the organization's goals and objectives. Acquire knowledge of key technologies and trends in the industry and learn how to leverage technology to drive business growth and improve operational efficiency. Understand the financial principles and practices that drive successful organizations and learn how to analyze financial data to make informed business decisions. Learn how to build and maintain a positive organizational culture that supports employee engagement and productivity and promotes teamwork and collaboration. And then the last one is develop the leadership skills needed to effectively communicate, inspire, and motivate employees and to lead change initiatives in a fast-paced and dynamic business environment. Well, I mean, at least it tried. This is the one where I was like, oh, well, that can use a lot of work. When creating learning objectives, there are a couple of golden rules. Rule number 1, never use the terms understand, know, and learn. It's not accessible or definable. My perception of understand and a student's perception of understand are not going to be on the same page. And the same thing could be said about know and learn. How do I assess understand? We can always break that down to get more and more granular until we're really talking about what we want students to be able to do. Rule number 2, use one verb per learning objective. When instructional designers narrow down the ask to a singular action, we can create assessments and learning activities to support achieving the learning objective. Different verbs would call for different kinds of assessments. Let's break down the 4th learning objective that I read. It was talking about building and maintaining a positive organizational culture. So to build a culture is different when compared to maintaining a culture. One, you are literally building from the ground up, and the other is that it's running and you're just trying to make sure that everything is going well. That's 2 different items, 2 different tasks. To me, if I was to create an assessment about how to build a culture versus how to maintain a culture, well, yeah, those are going to actually be quite different looking. So to me, learning objectives in ChatGPT were kind of a swing and a miss. However, since this is a chatbot, I did go back and say, could you revise learning objective number 4 to not use this word? And then it was able to go and to define that learning objective. And sure enough, it made it better. So it's not going to be what it gives you initially, which is going to be satisfactory. You need to go back and to give it more instructions. And the 5th and final way that we could potentially use ChatGPT is with podcast scripts. Yes, this is super meta, telling you about how to write a podcast with AI while you're listening to a podcast, but kind of interesting. So, as you know, I'm an instructional designer and I'm a podcaster. So you can bet that I create podcasts for my courses. However, not everyone has the skill set or quite frankly wants to become a podcaster and work on this skill set. So how can we provide some kind of alternative? The most common hangup I hear from folks wanting to create a podcast is that they don't know the material well enough to create a script around the topic. Usually, you need to go and find a SME to work with, have them review the podcast script, and then to learn how to write a podcast script as well too. All of that is very, very different too from a normal way of writing something. It's much more conversational in tone. And for my academic folks who are listening to the show right now, you have been beaten with APA style again and again and again, so you know how to write in a type of an academic way. Writing a script for a show is like the exact opposite. It has to be a free-flowing type of thinking. So in theory, could ChatGPT write for you a quick podcast script around a course topic? Well, let's see. This is what I said. I said, write for me a podcast script around the importance of networking with colleagues. And it says, sure. Here's a sample script of a podcast episode about the importance of working with colleagues. Now, the first thing it actually talks about, it puts it in brackets and says opening music and intro, because it is writing for you a podcast script, which I think is hilarious. So I'm going to read it the way that it's telling me to read it. It says, welcome to Career Connections, the podcast that explores the keys to success in the modern workplace. I'm your host, Luke Hobson, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of networking with your colleagues. Networking with your colleagues is one of the most important things you can do for your career. Not only does it allow you to build relationships with people in your field, but it also gives you access to new opportunities, information, and ideas. Studies have shown that people who have a strong network of professional contacts are more likely to be successful in their careers and to find new opportunities. So how do you go about building a strong network of professional contacts? One way is to make an effort to get to know your colleagues. Take the time to have lunch or coffee with them, attend company meetings and events, and practice in team building activities. You can also look for networking opportunities outside of your company, such as attending industry conferences, joining professional organizations, and participating in online forums and groups. For some people, networking can be intimidating or even uncomfortable. If you're one of those people, it's important to remember that everyone feels this way at first. The key is to take small steps and to be persistent. Start by talking to people you already know, and then gradually expand your network. Another tip is to have a goal or a specific reason for networking. It can help to have a clear purpose for the conversation, and it makes it easier to initiate. Building a strong network of professional contacts takes time and effort, but it's worth it in the long run. By networking with your colleagues, you'll gain access to new opportunities, information, and ideas, and you'll be more likely to achieve your career goals. Remember, networking is not about being pushy or self-serving. It's about building genuine relationships and creating mutually beneficial environments. So get out there and start connecting with your colleagues today. Thank you for listening to Career Connections. We'll be back next week with more tips and strategies for success in the modern workplace. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us to reach more people and provide valuable content. See you next time. This one it nailed. And it made me laugh because podcast hosts are quirky people that have an edge to them. The way that the script was written provides the kind of necessary feel that has this kind of, it's this different. It's free flowing, it's conversational, and it wasn't written as like a lecture, but it was seen and heard as being informative and entertaining. And the thing too that I just like, it made me laugh out loud reading this for the first time is that it even said to make sure to tell your audience to don't forget to subscribe and leave a review because it helps. Because indeed, folks, as I have told you before, whenever you review and rate this show, it actually does help. So I thought that was so funny that it made sure to include that inside of there. And of course, it also made sure to say closing music and outro music and things of that nature too. So today, if I was starting a podcast for a course or for a program, or heck, even for my own show, if I was making a brand new show and I wanted some ideas about what this could actually look like and to give me a structure for this one, I'm using ChatGPT. It honestly nailed podcasting. So overall, there are clearly some things that it is great at, like podcasting. There's some things that it's not so super at, like creating learning objectives. Is ChatGPT perfect? No, of course it's not. It will never be perfect. It needs to take in more information. It needs more feedback. It's going to be trained more and more and more over time. So once again, just in case if you read this and you see this type of a warning message, it is not replacing you. It is not stealing your job. But you should be familiar with its capabilities because right now we're on version 3. And version 4 is going to be coming out before you know it. So I would not be surprised if ChatGPT entered in our lives even more and more, just like with Google, just like with smartphones. I bet this is going to become a new way as far as for how we go about with living and using technology. So, hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. As ChatGPT told me to tell you, please be sure to subscribe and to leave a review for me to reach more people and provide valuable content. I think that's what it told me to say. Anyway, super funny. This is a really fun episode. I hope you liked it. I keep on dabbling and playing around with ChatGPT. If you go and try to actually search for ChatGPT and go into the OpenAI's learnings, their website, sometimes it is so busy that you can't get in, and you just therefore you have to keep on refreshing and like refresh like 9-10 times, and it will let you in. Don't know why that works, but it just keeps on. It does actually keep on working for me if I actually go and do that. But tell me what you think. Did you like the episode? Did you find it helpful? Do you think that ChatGPT is going to be replacing us? Or do you think, like I am thinking, and that we are going to be learning how to use this technology more and more as a part of our everyday lives? If you like the show, share it with a friend, share it with a colleague. That always helps with everything to get the word out about instructional design and to talk a bit more about ChatGPT. If you're interested in working with me and being able to go into the course about collaborating and building relationships with subject matter experts over on EduFlow Academy, all are welcomed on in. Go down below into the show notes, click on the link. Once again, the start date is February 13th. Can't wait to see you there. And once again, the book, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer, is now available on Audible, which you can go and listen to me for 5 hours and as I nerd out with you about instructional design. But folks, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.